Hello, and yeah, I'm back. I said I would do this, so I figured I would do the my top five favorite Superman stories ever. Now, I am not a big Superman fan. I'm not a big DC fan as far as that goes, even though I've done two of these for DC characters. But I'm not the biggest DC fan, definitely not the biggest Superman fan, and so before I get into this, you're not going to see like a lot of regular Superman stuff. I think there's only one story which you would consider canon. Everything else is well outside of canon. One is so far outside of canon, it's not even funny. But there you go. So yeah. So you're not going to get a lot of that. If you were, you'd probably get a lot more Dan Jurgens stuff. He's probably my favorite guy to ever be on Superman. His entire run was the only time I ever really cared about Superman, and I didn't even care about him that much. And then John Byrne stuff as well, when he kind of was the guy that redid Superman. So and uh, you know, sort of that. But these are my top five. We will talk about them if we have a chance. I might talk about the book that's not on here that everyone's probably going to ask, why is this book not on here? But we'll see if I have time by the time we get there. But we start with For the Man Who Has Everything, which is an Alan Moore story. Big surprise! Me, I love Alan Moore, and I love this story. When they redid this story, literally redid it in what was it, Justice League, the Justice League cartoon, I was super happy because this is one of my favorite stories. If you've never read this, basically the idea is Superman for his birthday gets a present, and the present is this thing that goes to his chest and basically makes his wildest dreams come true. And his wildest dream come true is that he basically was able to live his life on Krypton. And Batman, Wonder Woman, and Robin basically have to do everything in their power to bring him back into reality because he's basically in a comatose state. So there you go. That's the story. Um, Extremely good. Your basic Alan Moore story, and I believe that story can be found in Alan Moore in the DC universe or whatever it's called. So just so you know, the next one is a story that probably not a lot of people consider a Superman story, even though I do consider it a Superman story because the story is about him, and that is Kingdom Come. Some people consider it a Justice League Justice League story. I do consider it more of a Superman story. If you've never heard of Kingdom Come, you've probably been under a rock for the last 20 years. I would say, as far as comic books go, I kid. But basically, it is 20 years. It's set 20 years in the future. Superman basically has uh, gone into exile, and when he comes back, the world has drastically changed, and the young superheroes have taken over. They've basically made a mockery of everything, and it's up to Superman to round up the Justice League one more time and for them to help clean up the world. And it's the story is very much about him and this new world and him basically kind of trying to be what he once was, which is the symbol that everyone looks up to. And there's a whole lot of side stories. It's an excellent story if you've never read it. Very good stuff. A lot of stuff that a lot of parallels for the comic book industry, and Mark Waid uh, wrote it, which that's already a plus for me, and Alex Ross was the artist, which is even a bigger plus for me. But again, just really good stuff. Next we have Superman Red Sun, which is again a book. This is like Kingdom Come. Kingdom Come is not part of any type of canon, and Red Sun definitely is. Red Sun is kind of is an Elseworlds book, a what if book, if you will, which is based on the premise of what if Superman's rocket did not land in Kansas, but instead landed in Siberia. I believe it's Siberia, in Russia, and he basically became a tool for the Soviet uh, machine, the Soviet Empire. And so there's that part. Lex Luthor is basically the American who is done with the task of trying to find a way of destroying Superman, and Batman makes an appearance. Wonder Woman makes some appearances. It's a very interesting book. It's still very much a Superman book, and really, 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 really good. I love the ending to this book. I really do, and I'm not the biggest Miller fan, or Mark Miller fan, but I really, really enjoyed this. I was really surprised when I read this because I didn't think I would enjoy it very much. I really thought it would be kind of Miller doing trying to make Superman fit into that kind of pigeonhole a lot of people have been trying to do, I think, since Authority came out. Which I love Authority, but ever since Authority came out, people seem to miss the point of Authority, as Authority was supposed to be everything that the superhero groups weren't, and now everyone tries to make everything into Authority, and that was never really the point. And a lot of heroes the same way. And I really feared that that's what this book was going to be, and it wasn't. And that was a wonderful and great thing. Then we have Superman's Secret Identity, which is a book that I believe is out of print and you cannot get, which sucks because this is very close. This is very, very close to my favorite Superman story. The one ahead of it just slightly edges it out. This is very much my favorite, or one of my favorites, and it is so just not a Superman story in a lot of ways, and I mean that as far as a comic book. I have given this, because I do have the trade, to many fans who are not comic book fans, or many fans who aren't superhero fans. They kind of like comics. I have friends that have read stuff like Ghost World and Road to Perdition and stuff like that, but they're not really Cape fans. And I've given them this book, and they're just like, oh my god, this is amazing. And this is an amazing story. The premise is that you have a character named Clark Kent who lives in Kansas and is often ridiculed about the fact that he is Clark Kent and he lives in Kansas, and and eventually he does, throughout the story we find out how, develop superpowers and basically become Superman. And it's that story, and it is an amazing, amazing, amazing story, and just something that everyone should read, in my opinion. It is just an awesome, awesome story. Then we have the last one, which, if you are any type of comic book fan, you might be able to guess it, though you might not, because there's one that's not on here that everyone's going to probably ask me why. And looking at the timer, I'm going to be able to talk about why, and I will, because I want to go on a little rant on that book. And that is Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, also by Alan Moore. What this book is this is after the first, this is after Crisis of Infinite Earths, and when they were getting ready to relaunch all of the DC Universe, and they were going to basically finish the Superman of the Silver Age. Alan Moore, legend has it, basically threatened to strangle the lead editor for DC at the time if he was not allowed to write this book, or write this story, and so he wrote it. This is one of the most awesome stories you have ever heard or read, in my opinion. I love this. This really shows what you can do with Superman. One of my biggest gripes with Superman really is the fact that too many writers try to shoehorn Superman what they want Superman to be. And I think Superman is one of those characters where you cannot do that. Superman is what Superman is, and you basically have to revolve the story around that. You can't, over the last probably 10 years, I would say, we've seen Superman go through this kind of metamorphosis where now he's kind of moody, and oh, I don't fit in anywhere, and I call it kind of emo Superman. He's not quite that bad, but I do consider it kind of emo Superman. And to me, the best Superman stories are always about the fact that Yes, he is a Boy Scout. Yes, he knows he's a Boy Scout. And when his principles and his ethics, when you have a story where he questions them or questions the way he sees the world or questions the way he does things, those are the best Superman stories. Not the ones of, oh, well, I'm an alien and do I really fit in and I'm not really an Earthling and oh my God, da da da. Those are not Superman stories. Those are people that want to have stories that are not Superman stories, in my opinion. This story is very much a Superman story in the that age, where there's a little bit of corniness to it, which is fine. I've one thing that I've always actually liked about Superman is the corniness and the fact that there's these corny things that you can do, and the story is very much about that. The story is very much about this is very much the last Superman story as it is as is written, and it is an awesome story. The way everything comes together, the way the villains kind of evolve, the way that Superman's going into kind of this new age that he's not ready for. There's just a lot of stuff in this book that I just absolutely love. I love the way they depict not just the people around Superman, but the villains. The end of it is just is pretty amazing in my opinion, and just a really good book. Now, everyone is going to ask where a certain book is, and I will explain this because I will go on a rant on this book because I think it's one of the most overrated books ever, and that is All-Star Superman. Now, people are going to say, I can't believe you say that. I say that. Don't get me wrong. The first half of that story I liked just fine. I thought it was really good. The second half is where it kind of lost me, and here's my thing. It's written by Grant Morrison. My thing with it is, and this is one of my issues with Grant Morrison, with just about everything he writes. I do not read comic books to get Doctor Who stories. I do not. That's not why I read comic books. If I want a Doctor Who story, I will go read a Doctor Who comic. I will go read a Doctor Who book. I will go watch Doctor Who. I do not want Doctor Who stories in my comic books. I don't. That's just me. When you try to shoehorn them in, yes, oh, look, it's so nicely written, and oh, it's a new kind of wow kind of story. That's fine. That's cool. It doesn't make it a great story. It really doesn't. Just because it's a different story, it doesn't make it good. Again, first half of that book, or first half of that story, is really good. I won't deny that. It's the second half that I really just have a problem with. And honestly, I think there's a lot of themes that are in that book that Red Sun does a lot better. There's a lot of themes in that story. There's a lot of themes in that story that What Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, I think, does a lot better. So to me, while it's a good book, I wouldn't say it's a bad book by any chance, but I definitely don't think it's the greatest Superman story ever. I don't even think it probably deserves to be, I could see it being maybe 10, but that's about it because I think there's stuff that's actually I think, Man of Steel, I think would go ahead of this. I think, the whole Death of Superman trilogy would go ahead of that book. Birthright would go ahead of that book. There's a whole lot of other books that I would put ahead of it because, again, I feel like he took a bunch of stories that had been done before, a bunch of themes, put them in his own book, added his own little Doctor Who twist to it, and said, ooh, here we go. And because he's the new hot thing, everyone just kind of went, ooh, wow. But I really don't see that book. I see 10 years from now people going, oh, yeah, this is a good story, but it's not a great story. I think, to me. And, I don't like Grant Morrison. I'm not a big fan of Grant Morrison. I will freely admit that. But that's my problem with that book. And just because, like I said, a lot of the themes I've seen before, and so it didn't wow me as much as I think a lot of other people do. And I understand people go, oh, and the art, so, and all that. I understand that. But to me, like I said, there's a lot of elements to that we've seen before, and he's basically retold a lot of stories that had already been retold in his own kind of way. But is it the definitive Superman story? By far, no. It's not the definitive Superman story. Did it break new ground as far as the Superman story goes? No. Like I said, a lot of the story elements, a lot of the stuff in there had been done before, and he was just retelling it. So there's my issues with that book went on a little rant. I know most of you won't agree and will flame me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine. I don't care. That's my opinion. I'm out. Later.